Hello! Today we're going to do a recap of Chapter 4, which is the forces affecting the distribution channel. Now, if you remember from the last chapter, the distribution channel is basically how we get things from point A to point B, or how we get it from a distributor, specialty distributor, broad line or full line distributor, down to our operation. We talked about before about the apple and all the different hands that have to touch that apple, literally and figuratively, before it gets to your operation. And this is kind of the broader picture of that. We have several that we're going to talk about here briefly, but you're going to read about. We have economic, political, ethical, legal, and technological. Those are the different forces that will affect the things that come into our business. Important keys for all these to remember under economics. The first one is supply and demand. Supply and demand is as old as the day is long. It drives everything price-wise in this country, from gas to food to services. When there is a lot of demand for it, it usually means the supply is low. When the supply is low and demand is high, the price tends to be high. During the summer, we drive a lot. We use a lot of gas. Gas reserves go down. Less gas reserves, higher price for gas. In contrast, right now, this time of year, we drive a lot less. There's a lot more oil reserves. The price of gas goes down. Same thing can be said for food. Every year, the price of pork ribs goes through the roof. Why? Because we ship a ton of them over to Japan. They love our pork ribs over there. And so less ribs over here means the price goes up. It affects the farmers greatly, supply and demand. You look at the price of corn right now. Corn has gone through the roof. Not because we're eating more corn, but the demand for corn has been up to turn into ethanol or, as a fuel alternative. So the price of corn has gone way up because the demand for it is way up. So supply and demand. A couple other terms that are prevalent right at the beginning of this chapter are AP and EP. AP is as purchased. I pay $3.99 AP for a pineapple. That means I pay $3.99 for a whole pineapple as purchased. The EP, or edible portion price, is going to be different because the EP means I've taken the top off, I've taken the sides, I've cored it, I've gotten ready to eat. So AP as purchased, EP is cleaned up, trimmed, ready to go. Edible portion. Another interesting term is a monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition means basically everybody's in the same environment, everybody's got the same playing field. U.S. Food, Banta Foods, Reinhardt, Springfield Grocer all sell Heinz ketchup. What's going to make us buy from one versus the other? What type of value-added service? What type of intangible, we talked about the last chapter, intangible supplier services might make us want to buy from them. So that's the economic forces. Next are political, and this is a real interesting time for political forces in the hospitality industry. Big one right now, minimum wage. 15 for 15. The number of protests that you see on Yahoo all the time for fast food employees striking, wanting $15 an hour, it's all over the news. It's eventually, or has led to some cities raising their minimum wage, and we're going to see more legislation potentially, or at least fights over legislation coming down the pike to raise the minimum wage for people. So that is definitely politics. Minimum wage, raising that, whichever side you're on, is a political situation, a political hot potato. And so we see that a lot. You might see situations where we have embargoes, politics. We don't import Russian caviar into this country. We don't do that because we want to hurt Russia, and so we don't import their products. We don't bring in cigars from Cuba. All that may change. So those are political considerations there. A few years ago, there was a ban on foie gras, which is goose or duck liver, in Chicago. There are some people that said it's inhumane how we force these animals to consume extra food to produce these giant livers. And so there was a ban, a legal ban on this product. You know, I've never been much of a goose lover, but I do love foie. And those poor little animals sometimes have to suffer. You know, I think the government has better things to do than ban certain foods. Another big one in the news is GMOs. GMOs we talk about here in technology, but a GMO is a genetically modified organism. That's basically where we take the gene from one plant and put it with another. Say we want to increase the drought resistance of corn, so we might take a gene from another plant that lives in a drought area. Some people call it Frankenfood, after Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's a political hotbed right now. The European Union and Europe has banned all genetically modified organisms, even though there is not one single case of a GMO ever hurting or killing anybody. If you ever troll the Food Network page, you'll see GMOs all the time on there. People railing against GMOs, and then Monsanto, who is one of the companies at the forefront of genetically modified organisms. So there are people who want these banned outright. But another issue we have right now is labeling. There have been several laws that were attempted to be passed, several were passed, several were fought down over labeling. When you go buy a can of corn, should it tell you whether it has genetically modified corn in it or not? Do you have that right to know? Should you know? If you read that label, what's it going to mean to you? Chef Liz and I here, we argue all the time about this because I think it causes an unnecessary panic of people because they don't exactly know what a GMO is. They just think it's bad because they see it on TV. So, political forces affecting the distribution of what we can get, how much it's going to cost, how much we can get. Next is ethical. And, you know, the joke used to be ethics in the hospitality industry, and you stop and look at each other and you laugh. And that's actually the joke, because we're not known necessarily for our ethics here. What is ethical, what isn't ethical is a fine line. And sometimes it depends on where you work. Out in the real world, when I would have my own restaurant, a sales rep could come in and say, hey, Merry Christmas. Here's a case of steaks, or here's a couple bottles of premium spirits for you. Merry Christmas to you and your family. And if I'm out there and I own my own restaurant, there's really nothing wrong with that. In the situation I'm in here, for example, at a state school where I have state purchasing authority, if someone would come in and say, a salesman, and give me a case of steaks and say, here you go, Merry Christmas, technically that would be illegal. I could not accept that. It would be unethical for him to give me those steaks or those gifts because he is trying to influence my purchasing decision, or that's what people might think. And so that would be an unethical situation for me. And there's a lot of things that we can talk about with ethical purchases, what's right and what's wrong. I have a brother-in-law that sells food for Reinhart, another broadline distributor. I do not buy food from Reinhart because my brother-in-law works for the company. Some people might consider it unethical, and some might even consider it illegal, for me to purchase from that company where I have a family relationship. Because they'll say you're buying from them because he's family, not because it's in the best interest of the company. So I hope you see why that might be an unethical situation. Say I really want to buy, though, from my brother-in-law, but I can't buy directly, but I go and influence somebody else in the school to buy from him. Once again, more than likely an unethical situation. Important to remember is what they do for one, they have to do for all. They can't offer me something that they're not going to offer something else down the road. If you think it's unethical, it probably is. All kinds of situations arise here. I had a buddy years ago that got a case of bad product in. He sent it back to the company. A few weeks later, he ordered the same thing, got it back. He said, boy, this looks familiar. So he put a little mark on it, sent it back again. Another couple of weeks, he gets the same box. He looks on the bottom, product's not good. He looks on the bottom, there's this mark. The company had been recycling the bad product for weeks, trying to get somebody to take it. Unethical? Yeah, I think so. But we see that all the time. One of our students came in a while back and they'd ordered 10 cases of fish at the place they work. Instead of 10 cases of fish, they got 10 cases of lobster. It was marked fish, but they gave him lobster. So what do? 10 cases of lobster, worth a fortune. 10 cases of fish, not so much. Ethically, they should call the purveyor and tell them. Unethically, you take that lobster and you shove it in your car and you go home. Tough situation, tough call. They called the purveyor. The purveyor even laughed and said, how come you didn't keep some of this? Well, technically it would be unethical. It would be stealing from the company. And so, ultimately, I think you have to live with yourself. It's that whole golden rule thing, treat others as you like to be treated. It doesn't always happen in this business, but good ethical relationships can mean the world. And it can mean the difference between success and failure. So ethics as a force, I think, are a lot more important than people give them credit for. You want the people you're working with being ethical and being honest. If you pay your pest control guy X amount of money, you do want them to come in and do the best job possible and not just do something to get it done and get out, right? So, another force affecting is legal. The book mentions a whole lot of different government acts, which I'm not exactly that concerned with testing on. I don't think they make a difference in your day-to-day operation. However, you should understand the Sherman Antitrust Act. I think that's a biggie. And basically that makes it illegal to reduce or severely eliminate competition. In other words, you can't make it unfair for one person to do business over another. Cisco can't come in and say, we're going to sell you these potato wedges, but we're not going to sell them to anybody else in town when they're a broadline distributor. That actually wouldn't be fair, all right? Now, unless I brand marked it and trademarked it. So if they sell to Chili's, and Chili's might have their own trademarked French fry, that's a different story. And we actually had a situation like this in this town where I know one restaurant was getting a certain type of potato wedge, and the purveyor wouldn't sell it to anybody else, which was technically illegal. Strange things. Another thing with legal you should understand, there's a couple different terms you should understand what a contract is. And a contract is nothing more than agreement to do something or not to do something but two legally competent people. And we do this all the time. And contracts can be verbal, and contracts can also be written. Another thing to remember are warranties and guarantees. And once again, they can be implied or expressed. With an expressed, we actually write one down. Implied means we just simply imply that a warranty is going to be part of it. Package label regulations, something else that falls under the legal force here. And that's a big issue these days, package labels and also menu labels. A lot of states are pushing to have fast food restaurants label everything. So when you go in, you see the McDonald's board up there. It's got all the health information, all the nutritional analysis, all the you name it. So now instead of like a one-page menu, you've got a menu board that's across the whole restaurant. I don't know how you feel about, once again, that issue. I would tell you that the studies that have been done show that if menu analysis is readily available and you can see that a tofu sandwich has this much fat in it and a hamburger has this much fat in it, you will still order the hamburger. That menu analysis will not persuade you to not buy something, but the government still thinks that you should do that. Package labeling, things that must be on a package and they're changing all the time, fall into the legal guidelines. You should also know what a patent is. When you patent something, you basically say you invented it, you came up with it, it's my own special thing, and you patent it, so others can't use it, or if they do, they have to pay you. And then also rebates. And rebates are nothing more than money back, legal money back. So when I buy 50 cases of tomato sauce, I get a rebate of $2 per case. And that is legal as long as everybody gets the same rebate that I get. Lastly, title to goods is when do we take title of product that we buy? When it leaves the company, when it gets shipped, when it arrives, when do I actually own it? That may be real important if there's an accident or a loss during the shipping, something you should know. And last, one of my favorite force that affects the distribution channel is the technological changes. You know, and this is just amazing when you think back how food has changed, restaurant service has changed, food has changed in the number of years. It is just crazy how things have gone. And pardon me here, I have to do my computer real quick, because technological advanced computers here don't always work. But you think about, you know, advances in food. Go to the grocery store today, you buy Hershey's milk in these little paper cartons. It's not refrigerated, it's over in the juice aisle. It says UHT on there, or ultra high temperature pasteurized. That means they've taken this milk, put it in a little container, it's been packaged aseptically or with no air around in a sterile environment. And it's blasted with so much heat it kills every bit of bacteria and everything bad in it. So now it's basically just the chocolate milk. This milk will last for years, unrefrigerated on a shelf. Put it in the kid's backpack, take it camping, it won't go bad. I don't know if that's progress or not. I like Spam, canned meat. I know that's strange, but I have quite the Spam collection. The president of Hormel, who makes Spam, said Spam will last 20 years. And a can made today, 20 years, you can still open it and be good. Is that progress? I'm not sure, but it is what it is. We already talked about GMOs, genetically modified organism. Is it a terrible thing if we take a gene from one plant and stick it into another plant to make a third plant that is actually better for us? Some people think that is the worst thing in the world. Me? Until science proves it is a horrible thing, I'm not going to say it's bad or good. I like to be proven on these things. Productivity. The fact that we can now produce a lot more than we used to be able to produce because of modern technology. It is crazy. Transportation. You know, I can get on the phone and I can, or get on the internet and I can get anything in the world literally shipped to me in 48 hours. And it's a crazy thing how technology has changed our business. In last chapter we talked about POS systems. Just getting rid of the old cash register is one thing, but now the fact that I can buy something today and I can put it on a shelf in 20 years I can still serve it, part of that's scary, but that is technology. So anyway, those are the forces that are affecting the distribution channel. You will see this again in our discussion question. I'm going to use one of these as our discussion question for week 3, chapter 4. So you're going to pick one of these, you're going to talk about what you think about it, and we'll jump on and say if we think that's good or that's bad. Anyway, that's chapter 4. Have a good chapter. Have a good week. Do your discussion question. Be good. Talk to you later. Bye.